Greetings hobbyists, this is Artisans of Vol, and in this video we're talking through how to get an exact cut depth using the add-on Boxcutter. So Boxcutter is one of my staple add-ons that I use with Blender and I can't recommend it enough. And generally when you're going to buy it, you'll buy it with hard ops and they add a huge amount of functionality to Blender, and Boxcutter generally focuses on giving a nicer way of adding in booleans, and actually it gives a lot more to that as well, but it is a very nice tool in terms of adding finesse to this. And once you have that installed, it's as simple as going to Alt and W to bring up your Boxcutter properties. There's loads of options here, and then you just click drag to start your boolean, let go, and then you start doing your cut, and you can see how nicely this visualizes everything along the way. Click and you've got your boolean. There's loads of other options for this. I've got a whole playlist on it, including a really good guide going through all of these options. And as I said, this generally combines with hard ops, which is another add-on from the same creators that goes through and looks at other ways of optimizing Blender. There's a playlist for that as well. I'll put both of those in the description. And on one of those videos, I was asked, how do you cut to a specific depth using Boxcutter? And that's what I wanted to talk through today, because there's a few options here. Now, the first of them isn't a perfect option, but it really helps generally as you use Boxcutter, so I want to cover it. So what I'm going to do is hit N, and I'm going to come down on my menus at the side here, which have all my add-ons, and admittedly I've got quite a few, and importantly, I'm going to come to hard ops. Now, this feels a little counterintuitive, but that's the way it is, so you need hard ops to be able to do this, and there is a discount when you get both of them together, and I'd really suggest if you're going to get one, get the other. We're going to come to this star here, and then in these options, I'm going to click Boxcutter notifications, and it then comes up with some units, which I'm going to leave off because while you can have lots of different things, I don't have any units, I use Blender units. Hit N, and then once we've got that activated, all we do is click and drag as normal, and now we've got this information box that shows us our X and Y, and as soon as we release and start doing our depth, it shows us our extrusion depth. So say we wanted to go to 1.5, I can get to approximately 1.5 and then click, and we've got that about 1.5 units deep. So that's the first option. Not very precise, but in many instances, that's going to be about what you need. Let's undo that. But I get the feeling that this post was actually wanting a very specific depth, so we'll have a look at how we're going to do that. And the answer to this is found in Boxcutter's D menu. So if I hit D, we get this Boxcutter helper menu, and it has loads of different options, and one of them, this is going to be the one that matters, is laser cut. Now laser cutting, if I just come here, is if I drag on this and instead of releasing, which allows me to then pick the extrusion depth, I just take my finger off and click again, so off and click, it laser cuts through, cutting through the entirety of the object really nice and cleanly. Let's just Control and Z to undo that. But on that D menu, we had an option here. Now notice this was set as 0, which means that it will go all the way through. If I set this as a depth, let's try 1.5 again, and hit enter, and then we come here and drag, and then I let go and click. You'll notice it has not gone all the way through, it has gone, well, shockingly, 1.5 units. If I go into X-ray mode, we can see this has gone 1.5 units through. Now, something to highlight here, this is not quite as exact as you want. If I zoom in a lot, and bear in mind we're talking really tiny measures of accuracy here, this is not perfect. It's a tiny little bit out. Now let me explain why. If I use hard ops, press Q and ever scroll, you'll also notice that Boxcutter makes a nice cutter menu up here, so we could have done this here, but if I hit Q and ever scroll, and we get this, you'll notice that to make this work, it sticks out a little bit on this side, and it sticks out a little bit compared to that 1.5. So this is not perfect. However, we can make this more perfect. Let's just press D, and we're going to select that we're going to keep it as 1.5 for the laser cut, but we're going to change the solver from being fast to being exact. Now, why this is important, notice I haven't changed it yet, is that if I bring this back again, if we know booleans, we know that when we create a boolean, that we have our boolean having options of solvers. But with fast, if we were to have this face here, let's just go into face mode, this face here, perfectly on this face here, this solver would actually cause issues. Whereas exact would mean that doesn't have a problem. So Boxcutter has to give this little bit of gap here if we're in the fast option. Whereas if I hit D and we go to exact, we don't have that problem anymore. Now this means that if I do this again and we laser cut and then we come to our side view, you'll notice that this looks like it's done a pretty good job, but if we zoom in, you'll notice that this is literally exactly on this line. And it's starting, if I Q and then ever scroll and bring this back, exactly on this edge as well, because we can do with that exact option. So there's some finesse to this in terms of what you want and how precise this wants to be. I will say that I've noticed, and I'm not sure if this is a recent update thing, that when I do this sometimes, if I can make it work, let's see if I can do it wrong. No, this will be annoying here because it doesn't always do this incorrectly. Let's try that. Yeah, here. Sometimes this doesn't perfectly create that as we'd want. So I have noticed that there's a slight bug here, but I have had to do this quite a few times to get that bug to even show up. So that is an option, and I think a pretty good option that we've got, and that's our laser cutting. Now the other thing that our laser cutting will do is that we don't actually have to do the double click. If we just drag here, this actually acts as a limit. And you can see on my extrude, I can't get any further on this, which is actually a really useful function because it means I can see how deep I want this using that iconography at the bottom to see how deep it's going, but set a maximum that I don't want to get any deeper than. And for 3D printing, this is really nice because say this is 4 wide, I could set this as, I don't know, 3.5 because I know that I need to have at least 0.5 millimeter at that end for this to not have a problem printing. So that is a really useful limit to be able to set. So really like that as some functionality. So hopefully that answers that question. Now I just want to leave on a quick bonus tip. So I'm going to hit D and we're going to see that we've got some options here of where our object origin is. And at the moment I've got the bounding box center. Let me explain what this is doing. If I create a box here, drag in and click, and then hit Q and ever scroll, and we bring back this cutter, you will notice that the origin of this cutter is perfectly in its center, which most of the time we'll want. But what we can do, if we come over here and hit D, is change where that's going to be. For example, I might want it in the center of the initial face that's being created. Now this will do something different. So if I click here and then drag, we've still got the laser cut limit as we would expect, but now if I Q and ever scroll, because we've got the origin at this face, what's useful about this and why non-destructive modeling is so good is that if I bring up my N panel and go to item, I can change my depth at any point. You can notice that the Z, and this will always be, the Z is the depth of the cut, is 3.5. And if later on I go, actually, no, I don't want that. I want this to be 3. I can change it, and now I know that depth is exactly 3. So if you're interested in non-destructive modeling, and you think there might be a chance that you're going to want to change the exact depth that you want, that option there of having the origin as the initial center is a really valuable tool. You can also do it where you initially click as well. If I just do that here. And that one, if we come to ever scroll, we'll set it in the corner where I originally clicked. And that will have exactly the same option here. I can come and do that as, let's say, 2, and that's still done the depth the same. But for the X and the Y, we'll work off that corner instead of this one where it will work off the center. So for example here, if I change the X to, let's say, 2, you'll notice that it has widened that from the center point. If I come to this one and I change this one to have the X as 2, it works it out from that edge. So something to consider there if you're interested in specific object sizes and changing them later. Hopefully that's been useful. There are links to HardOps Boxcutter and that discounted bundle in the description. They are affiliate links, which means they cost you no extra, but a little bit of money goes towards the channel, and that helps give me the time to make these videos. So if you are interested in either of those, it'd be really appreciated if you used those links. Have a great day, guys.